Hopefully you all caught a couple sessions yesterday. Before we get started with our first session this morning, did anyone attend any session in this room yesterday? Ooh, lots of people. All right, front and center, you took a good spot. What is something that you remember most or learned yesterday when you were in this room?
Some of the data that they went through for why sales managers do what they do, and how we have what we had originally thought was kind of some of the conventional thinking and some of the new thinking. I think that was pretty insightful. It's things I've seen in the field, but she actually had data to back it up.
Okay, I think you're talking about one of the research sessions we had yesterday. That, yeah, we have kind of these preconceived notions about some things about sales and sales management and some best practices, but there's new research that's showing that maybe there's some other things we should be focused on. Well, thank you for volunteering that information. You get a gift card. Starting the morning out with some giveaways. All right, well, hopefully not only you all have time to attend our first session this morning. We're starting the morning strong with Michelle and Gabe will be coming up shortly. But I really encourage you all to come back and hang out with the Sales Ops track both this morning, and then we've got 3 sessions teed up for the afternoon as well. So let's kick things off. Garrick, I'm going to let you come up and introduce our first session.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. So we're going to go ahead and get started now. I just want to take a moment to introduce our speakers. We have Michelle Dodson, who's the Director of Sales Operations at Apttus. For the past 2 years, she's worked to help increase sales efficiency and productivity at Apttus. And with over 10 years of experience, Michelle loves working with company executives as well as sales management to run a global sales team. And our next speaker is Gabe Larson. Gabe has over 15 years of experience in driving business revenue for companies of all sizes. As a director of InsideSales.com's labs, Gabe has worked with over 200 clients to help solve some of the biggest challenges in the sales acceleration stage. All right, so with that, let's welcome our speakers.
Is our mic on? So as you can tell, I have 50 years of experience in the sales field.
You look pretty good. 50 years, yeah.
I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's great.
That's awesome.
I think it's more like 15, but that's all right.
Yeah.
We'll go with it.
All right, guys, you guys are in for a treat. Gabe and I met about 20 minutes ago. We hit it off really well. We realized that this is going to be fun. We want this to be fun for you guys. With what combined like 75 years of experience between the two of us. We're here to talk to you guys about some of the tips that we have for creating really effective dashboards and reports for your organizations. Oh, you know what? We need the clicker.
Oh, I'll get it. Yep.
Thank you.
Here.
Thank you.
Let's start.
So here we are in our photo representation. So Michelle Afshar Dodson, I'm from Apttus, and Gabe is from InsideSales.com. So let's just get started. If you ask me, I think dashboards are like a crystal ball. Everyone is looking at the same data. They need different results. They need to see something different, right? So as admins or as the people responsible for building the dashboards, we have to provide data for all these different types of people. How many of you in this room are responsible for creating reports and dashboards for your companies? Anybody? One person? One fellow? Okay, 2? Thank you for being honest. Okay. Have you guys ever spent maybe, I don't know, a couple days trying to build a dashboard out and then you realize no one is actually using it? Okay, good. So I'm not the only one that happens to. All right, so what I want to go over with you today is my kind of top 3 tips, and then Gabe is going to share his tips with you guys as well. So first tip from me is that you should always start at the top. Working with your company executives, they're going to set the goals for the company. They're going to kind of tell you how are we going to measure the company for success. And working with all kinds of different CEOs and executives, I learned that you cannot overwhelm them with data. And PricewaterhouseCoopers did a survey. They said 52% of CEOs cannot handle more than 5 to 10 metrics at a time. So you might think that you should go and give them all this data, but you're just overwhelming these people who are already very busy. Well, I'll tell you a quick story because I worked for a very psychotic but crazy CEO a couple years ago. And I'm talking like genius man. He only ate salmon, broccoli, and blueberries. Those are like the top 3 brain foods, right? So he's like really just very smart. But he was constantly asking me for new reports and dashboards. And what would happen is I would max out all the dashboards, and he had like 5 or 6 different ones he wanted. He was constantly asking me questions. So I got sick of him asking me the same questions, and so I consolidated all the dashboards into one. There was 10 metrics on there. I had it sent to him every single day. What he needed more than anything, more than asking me all these crazy questions, was he needed a consistent place to go find accurate data. Right? So your executives are always going to ask you for data. That doesn't mean that you're going to go and throw it on a dashboard. Just kind of be aware of that. You're the people who can kind of set the dashboard tone. Just be confident in that you know what should be on there. Tip 2 is to work your way down. And that can mean different things for different people. But today we're going to talk about your sales managers. And really, your company executives are going to set the company directives, but then it's our jobs to create these dashboards so that your managers know how they're being tracked for success. So I've been with Apttus about 2 years, and when I got here, a lot of the sales managers were asking some of the same questions. They didn't know what their win rates were against certain competitors. They didn't know if they had enough pipeline to hit the number for the quarter. So I worked with the sales managers, and we built a gold standard dashboard for our sales management. On that, I mean, we can add all the typical reports and dashboards that you guys probably think of, like how much did they book, and how much pipeline did they have, and who are their top reps. But what we did here, and what worked really well, was that we started to highlight what the reps in their territories were not doing. So who are the guys, like knuckleheads, call them out, right? Front and center. Hey, you forgot to sell support with your licenses. Hey, you are missing all this competitive data in your deal. So we were able to start to have these conversations with both sales management as well as the reps and drive the behaviors we wanted to see in the field. So that really changed a lot of kind of how we worked with our management and how we worked with our field reps. And we replicated that dashboard across every region. So I would suggest, take some time, work with your managers, and really understand what they need to see to be successful. And then this is my most important tip. So if you just want to Gabe probably has some good tips too, but if you want to leave with one tip, this is probably the...
I agree, actually.
Yeah, it's really good.
The best tip.
Okay, so there's 2 types of users. There is a power user, and there is a power loser. That's my opinion. Some of you may agree with me after this. So what's a power user? A power user is that obnoxious salesperson who's going to come to you and talk to you about, oh, I create reports and dashboards in my spare time. Look what I did. I'm probably smarter than you. That person. That's who you bounce off your completed dashboard with. That's who you really can help gauge whether or not your dashboard is easy to use, whether they can answer just basic questions. And then my favorite is the power loser. But the tip here is you don't tell them that they are the power loser, because then they're probably not going to want to help you. Your power loser is that guy or lady that they're constantly locking themselves out of your CRM. They probably only log in when you or the managers tell them to. But this person is really going to help gauge the effectiveness of your dashboard, and they're going to help you figure out whether or not people can easily read your dashboard and all the reports and data that is there. So anytime I build a dashboard, I call on these 2 people when I'm done, and I just run it by them. So, you guys all know, make a mental note when you guys go back to your organizations, pick your power user, pick your power loser, use them going forward, and you'll be able to see just how much more successful your dashboards can be. Here you go, Gabe. It's your turn.
I think that's all we need. That last point was
all right,
the best.
Let's go.
So I wanted to add some on to what's already been said. I think we got some great advice. Here's a couple of things that we've found to be effective at InsideSales.com. This is a story of a fighter pilot. I thought this story was actually really interesting, and I thought it did apply pretty well to sales. So this is about the Gulf War. There was an American fighter pilot, He's flying over. It's a Gulf War battle. He gets hit on the right wing, but it's not bad enough that he has to go down. He thinks he can get back to base. And so he's sitting there, and in his own words, he kind of talks about it, and he says, I've got all of these dashes, and I don't know if you've ever sat in the cockpit of a fighter pilot. There's like all these little widgets and gadgets and dials, etc. And he said, I had to figure out what were the dials that would get me home. Everything else didn't matter. I had to focus on the most important ones. And I remember hearing him think about it, and I'm like, oh, for us sales operation, for dashboard, that is key. There's going to be so much stuff that you can look at, but what's going to get you home? What's going to get you to your goal? Can you narrow it down to the 3, 4, 5? And for him, he said there was 5 key things I looked at, and that's how I actually got home. So at InsideSales.com, for us, now we're a SaaS company, but we sat down. I think most SaaS companies probably do. This is us. These are our 4 metrics that we live and die by. Nothing else matters. Are the ones that will get us home, get us to IPO, get us whatever the end goal is. Now, a lot of you will know these: ARR, churn, customer value, or CAC, lifetime value. These are the key things that we've identified in our business that are going to be those 4 or 5 key metrics. The question for you is, what are your 5 metrics that will indeed leave you home? Leave you home? Not leave. That's not what I meant to say. It wasn't leave. It was get you home. You don't want to be left home. Don't forget about leading indicators. So go in other places. I played Pee-wee football, and I had a coach. His name was Todd Christensen. If there's any Raiders fans out there, are you a Raiders fan by chance? No? So he played tight end for the Oakland Raiders, and I was 12 years old. He treated us like we were NFL players. You know, he was just always in our face, always yelling, always acting like our motto. You know how kids will get together and they'll do what do they call this? Like the team cheer or something?
I'm not good at sports. Yeah.
You guys know what I'm talking about. You get together before the game and you do a team cheer. Most people will be like their team name or hooray or something like that. Guess what ours was? Whatever it takes. Wit. Just like, wow. I remember one time I came out and my elbow was hurting, and Gabe, whatever it takes, wit. And I'm like, but my elbow. Anyways, those are traumatic childhood memories. Leading indicators are what lead to touchdowns. But very often we do only focus on end outcomes. We'll focus on revenue. We'll focus on some of these bigger things. But we don't realize that first downs leads to touchdowns. So we sat down, and I just wanted to give you one example. These are some of the leading indicators for our sales development team that we've found to be a little bit more effective. And again, we don't necessarily capture all of these, but I thought it was a great brainstorming session. You hopefully won't see any actual outcome metrics, but you do see a lot of leading indicators. One that's been exceptionally interesting for us, this set and this held rate for sales development reps. And again, this is only a sample, you guys, but I think the concept of leading indicators is right. So very often people will talk about, qualified pipeline or the number of qualified opportunities for sales development. But we found this interesting phenomenon at InsideSales.com that we were setting a lot of appointments, but they weren't actually being held. In fact, we had a 23% no-show rate by our own account executives. You believe that? 23% no-show rate. I mean, if you guys don't believe this happens in your own org, you got to check. I mean, account executives often think that sales development reps opportunities are good or bad. Bad. I mean, come on. Oftentimes they think it's not even worth showing up. So we had to figure that out by capturing what we call a held rate. How often were you holding it or setting it versus holding it? The other thing we found with set and held, and again, I don't mean to dive too far down on this, but it was really interesting, was time from when the person was talked to when the appointment was actually held. So I get on the phone as a sales development rep, I talk to a person, and I set an appointment. Oh my goodness, anything over 4 days, our qualification rate and our close rate was under 10%. That's kind of interesting. It's kind of that concept of immediacy. If a prospect was serious, we should be able to get an appointment within 4 days. Anything over 4 days, it was almost like it was not even worth setting or holding that appointment. But those types of leading indicators really helped us gauge what sales development reps should or should not be doing on the phone. The power of leading indicators. Now, this alignment across team. One of my favorite activities, and if you have not done this, I am so geeked about. I've probably done 250 sales process maps. I can't even talk about numbers and metrics till I've done some sort of, okay, and this is just a sample, but I get it. Okay, so we generate leads through these different marketing channels, then it goes to a sales development team or an account executive team. They work with these people, they do this, then it works. You've got this specialization. I actually worked for Toyota in Saudi Arabia, and they had all these manufacturing plants, and it was so nicely laid out, right? It goes from this machine to this machine to this machine. In sales, it's actually like that, but we never take the time to diagram out the flow of a life of a lead or how a sales moves through our specialized sales system. So when you do that, you can often quickly find out, okay, I've got these 4 or 5 different teams, and these 4 and 5 different teams, how should they work together? And I feel like our alignment between teams in a specialized sales process is a disaster. It's like over-specialization. You know, you've got, that is a sign.
Yeah.
That is a sign.
That you're doing really well.
Well, it left.
Oh.
Anyways. I love that we're seeing birds. I was on a conference call a little bit ago and there was chirping. The person on the phone was like, is that chirping in the background? No, that's not. That's me chirping. So, I don't even know what I'm talking about now. This alignment across these teams. So if you actually map out your sales process, you'll see that you have these different silos, basically. And these silos oftentimes don't know how to work together, and they don't know what they should be doing specifically. It's so important that these teams get together and define what they actually are in charge of and what they are not in charge of. So this is just a sample. You've got an acquisition, a content, a sales, and a success team. You may name them slightly different. You may do something slightly different, but it's important to sit down and say, okay, what are the metrics that you, as the content team, are going to be in charge of? You, as the acquisition team, you're going to be in charge of. And you, as the sales team, what are those 4 or 5 key metrics? Because I just feel like it gets lost in this world of a little bit of gibberish. And so these are only samples. This comes from a company called Digital Marketer. I love this idea, though. Get everybody on the same page. Make sure they know exactly what they should be held accountable for or to, and you can really get some alignment within your organization.
I mean, with our 75 years of experience, if any of you have any questions that you'd like to ask us, we have a couple minutes. Just raise your hand. Sarah can get you the mic.
5 or 6. Okay.
Please don't give him the mic.
Question up here.
All right. Good morning.
Default to you, and then I'll take it a second.
So for Gabe, so you guys, yeah.
Did you hear what I just said?
Yeah, I was going to ask her, but then I thought, no.
I was like, I'll default to you first. I'll pick it up.
I'm a salesperson. So at Inside Sales, you go in every day and you're beholden to those metrics. Like I would go in there.
These right here, you're saying, or?
And then the process flow. Like I'm logging into Salesforce, everything. How do you log all this stuff? How do I log all this stuff?
Which part of it?
It seems like there's a lot in the flow diagram.
In this process?
Yeah.
Yeah. So ideally, I mean, this is not necessarily InsideSales.com, but man, if you actually take the time to map out your sales process, you will see that there's a lot of different inputs and outputs. Ideally, a lot of this would be captured automatically, but you'll notice here, I'm trying to capture incremental increments. So for example, we got leads here. You know, how fast are you responding to your leads? That was just a hole in this person's process. 24 hours, that's not great. That's a problem. Well, it's taking them 15 minutes to actually log a task. Now, you as a sales rep are doing some of this, but the question is, how long is it taking you? And can we basically visualize it and then improve it? But ideally, as a sales rep, you'd want this to be done automatically, if at all possible.
What if I don't do it?
Yeah, because again, let's just use this one, this lack of immediacy. I mean, does anybody know how fast you should be responding to leads? A lot of good research out there. I mean, best practice says it should be under 5 minutes. Under 5 minutes. Anything over 24 hours is just despicable. An hour is basically average. 5 minutes is what you'd consider best practice. Your qualification rates go up 21 times and your contact rates go up 100 times. So this is something that if this is a problem in your org, I'd throw it on a dashboard and I'd be watching people to make sure it happens, because those are one of those levers you can pull. But you don't use, this is a metric, immediate lead response time. How many people capture lead response? I bet nobody does. I mean, it's just, if you map out your process, and you'll be like, wait a minute, we get these leads, and then you get them, we do a batch process that throws them into Salesforce 48 hours after they've been created. Then we do a round robin that sends it out to the different offices. So you don't even get the lead for 5 days. Oh, that happened. I was at Aflac. 5 days later, they got the lead. Well, that became on the CEO's dashboard. It became that important. Good question.
And that's the stuff that we're highlighting on our sales management dashboard. So that's usually why your manager calls and yells at you specifically, because of the things that you're not doing or if you're taking too long. So those are things that you should definitely highlight, because it will drive that behavior that you want to see.
Good. Anything else? Question?
All right. Gabe and Michelle, thank you guys very much. All right. All right, gang, we're going to take a couple minutes here and just change up for the next session, but stay tuned. We really have got a good one coming up that is has some good customer stories as well as some research.